How do I stop the overthinking? So I am the classic overthinker. I am constantly in my head. There's a million things going on at any given time. I jump from one thing to the next. I'm the most random person you probably will ever talk to. But one of the things that I've learned is that you got to get a control of those thoughts in order to reduce the anxiety. And so I wanted to give you 3 tips today of being able to stop, slow down, minimize, reduce the overthinking. And so the first one is, I call it busting negative thought bubbles. And so I think about all the thoughts that we have as little bubbles floating around in our heads. And our goal is to kind of get in there and boop, 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 and like pop each one of them. And so how do you do that, right? And so what I've done and what I've seen to be very effective is to take a thought. So you take that thought and you start kind of dissecting it, and you look at the rationale behind it. What is the likelihood of this actually happening? Could this happen to me? Is what I'm thinking a rational thought? And you also look at, has this happened before? And what was the result of it before? And so the idea is to be able to prove to yourself that the thought is not rational, is irrational. Being able to say, I've made it through situations like this before, so why am I sitting here worrying about it over and over and over again? And so we want to be able to challenge those irrational thoughts, to be able to prove to ourselves that these things aren't going to happen. And if we come across a thought that could possibly happen, where we go from there is developing an action plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about action plans in another video, but simply an action plan is, how are we going to effectively deal with this thought or this situation when it actually occurs? So that's number 1, busting negative thought bubbles. Number 2 is thought tracking. And how you choose to track your thoughts is completely up to you. So some people may do it through journaling. Some people may just jot down a couple of the thoughts that they're having. But the idea is to look at the thought, look at the situation around what's happening, and kind of develop for yourself like a map of different situations and thoughts that you have, so that you're able to see how your thoughts are flowing for yourself, if that makes sense. So if I look at it in terms of like journaling, what you do is you kind of just say, hey, I'm having this thought. This is why I'm having this thought. This is the situation that's going on. This is what I think is going to happen. This is how I'm going to deal with it, or how others may say I should deal with it. And so it's just really getting all those thoughts out of your head and onto paper. One of the things that I notice happening a lot is that when all those thoughts are running around in your head, it's hard to really break them down. And so when you put them on paper and you start tracking the thoughts, it kind of slows down what's in your head, so it's not chaotic in there anymore. You're able to see, this is what I'm thinking about this is what I'm thinking about that. And when you're trying to write down everything that's in your head, it forces you to slow down your thoughts. So the second is thought tracking. If you have more questions about that, I may be able to explain it better through writing, or I may just do another video surrounding thought tracking by itself in the way that I define thought tracking. And the third tip in regards to overthinking and stopping those thoughts is to, I'm going to call it activating another part of your brain. And so one of the things that I realize is that when I do things that are active, that require me to focus, whether it's running, meditation, yoga, watching a game show, trying to solve a mystery on TV, playing with kids, having a conversation with friends, going to work and talking to people about their own problems. What it does is that it activates a part of my brain that forces me to focus on something else and something specific. And so I'm not focusing on all these other things that are going on around me. And so the goal is kind of to, I hate the word distract, but what happens is you are distracting yourself from everything that's going on in your head by singling in on one thing that has nothing to do with what's going on in your head. So I hope that makes sense. So my 3 tips have been to stop the overthinking, is to bust those negative thought bubbles, to start tracking your thoughts, which kind of goes along with the busting negative thought bubbles, and to also activate a different part of your brain so that you're not constantly overthinking. Now, does this mean that the thoughts are never going to come back? No. This isn't going to completely erase thoughts. What it does is just slows down thoughts so you can function in your life. So if you have any additional questions, comments, just let me know and I'll try to address them for you in another video.